There are moments in the history of human competition when the boundary between triumph and catastrophe becomes so thin that nobody watching truly understands what line has just been crossed until long after the silence settles over the arena. Every sport carries within its foundational rules a quiet agreement between the athletes, the officials, the medical staff, and the thousands of roaring spectators gathered under the glare of the lights. An unspoken covenant that promises intensity, valor, and the relentless pursuit of greatness, while simultaneously trusting that the systems designed to safeguard human life will hold firm when the pressure mounts. In combat sports, this delicate balance is pushed to its absolute threshold with every single exchange, every tactical adjustment, and every breath drawn between the rounds, where men and women dedicate entire lifetimes to mastering an art form that demands physical perfection, unwavering courage, and an almost sacred trust in the judgment of those tasked with overseeing their safety. When thousands of people pack into an arena, their voices rising in unison to create a wall of sound that reverberates through the concrete and steel, the focus is inevitably pulled toward the drama of the contest, the radiant glare of the spotlights illuminating the canvas, and the pursuit of victory that defines an athlete's entire destiny. Behind every grand spectacle, behind every roaring crowd and every banner bearing a rising star's name, there is an entire lifetime of preparation, sacrifice, and silent dedication that the public rarely sees in full. Built quietly in modest gymnasiums from early childhood through long mornings of conditioning, strict discipline, and the unconditional belief of a family standing steadfast in the corner. Before we delve deeper into this powerful journey and uncover the full measure of what transpired under the blinding lights of that unforgettable evening, please take a brief moment to subscribe to the channel, activate all notifications, and join our growing community so you never miss our in-depth investigative stories, retrospective profiles, and detailed documentary pieces exploring the most profound events that have forever shaped modern athletic history. To truly understand how an ordinary evening can transform into a turning point that resonates across the global sporting landscape, one must first look at the profound atmosphere that surrounds elite competition, where years of grueling preparation converge into a single night that promises to define a legacy. The journey toward the upper echelon of professional athletics is never an easy one, marked by early morning roadwork through quiet neighborhood streets, endless rounds of sparring in humid training facilities filled with the rhythmic sound of leather striking leather, and the heavy burden of expectation carried on young shoulders. A fighter enters the arena carrying not just their own aspirations, but the hopes and pride of their entire heritage, their community, and the devoted family members who poured their personal resources, time, and emotional strength into nurturing a talent from the very first day gloves were laced up. There is an unmistakable electricity in the air whenever an undefeated contender approaches the ring, moving with the supreme confidence of someone who has overcome every obstacle placed in their path, accompanied by the vibrant music of their homeland and greeted by an audience eager to witness the coronation of a future champion. The canvas under the ring lights is pristine, the ropes are pulled taut, and the entire production is orchestrated with meticulous precision, designed to deliver high-stakes drama to broadcast audiences around the globe who tune in expecting an exhilarating display of technical skill, endurance, and heart. Yet beneath the glamour, the commercial grandeur, and the theatrical presentation of major sporting events lies a complex web of institutional responsibility that must function without a single second of hesitation. Referees, ringside physicians, corner personnel, and sanctioning officials are stationed just inches away from the action, positioned precisely to interpret the subtle indicators of distress that might escape the casual viewer watching from the upper tiers of an arena or through a television screen. In an environment where adrenaline surges at its peak, and an athlete is conditioned by years of instinctual training never to surrender, never to display vulnerability, and always to push through discomfort, the burden of protective intervention falls squarely upon those whose professional duty is to prioritize human well-being above competitive outcome. The human brain, cushioned only by fluid within the rigid structure of the skull, is subject to immense rotational and blunt forces during prolonged physical impact, creating hidden physiological damage that does not always announce itself with an immediate or dramatic collapse, but often begins as subtle disorientation, a momentary lapse in reaction time, a persistent dull ache, or an unusual complaint voiced quietly to a cornerman during the 1-minute respite between rounds. The atmosphere inside the arena on such pivotal nights is intoxicating, charged with an intensity that pulls every person in attendance into a shared collective trance, where every offensive maneuver is met with thunderous applause, and every defensive maneuver is scrutinized by analytical commentators breaking down the action in real time. Spectators focus entirely on the scorecards, the offensive output, and the momentum shifts that make sports inherently captivating, rarely contemplating the fragile physiological reality unfolding beneath the surface of the spectacle. When a young athlete steps onto that elevated stage, surrounded by cameras capturing every movement for millions of viewers across continents, they represent the pinnacle of physical conditioning, a living testament to what strict discipline, nutritional rigor, and relentless dedication can achieve over decades of deliberate practice. Their parents sit in the front rows, watching every second with a mixture of immense pride and quiet anxiety that only a mother or father can truly feel, knowing every sacrifice that was made to reach this moment, from driving to amateur tournaments across the country to bandaging scraped knuckles and offering words of encouragement through seasons of doubt. As the rounds progress in any high-stakes contest, the physical toll accumulates steadily, testing the structural endurance of the human body and the operational vigilance of the medical oversight team stationed at ringside with their medical kits, diagnostic protocols, and direct lines of authority to stop the action at the slightest indication of catastrophic danger. There are protocols established by governing commissions that dictate exactly how a physician must evaluate a competitor who reports abnormal sensations, unusual pain in vulnerable areas such as the back of the head or neck, or signs of cognitive slowing that deviate from their baseline state. These rules exist precisely because combat sports operate on the razor-thin margin between regulated athletic competition and profound medical emergency, requiring split-second decisions that carry consequences lasting far beyond the final bell. Long after the television broadcast concludes, the sponsors dismantle their signage, and the arena custodial staff sweeps the discarded ticket stubs from the empty aisles. The true weight of these institutional responsibilities is often obscured by the rapid pace of the event, the commercial pressures of live programming, and the prevailing culture that often celebrates an athlete's willingness to endure severe physical punishment as an ultimate badge of honor rather than a critical warning sign that immediate clinical intervention is required. The story we are examining is not merely an account of a single athletic bout, nor is it simply a recounting of rules, regulations, and medical oversights within the world of professional competition. It is a profound human narrative about the extraordinary fragility of human life, the life-altering consequences of decisions made in high-pressure environments, and the unseen aftermath that begins when the bright stadium lights finally go dark. It is a story that compels us to look past the external glamour of sports entertainment and confront fundamental questions about institutional duty, medical ethics, and the profound depth of familial devotion that emerges when an entire world changes in an instant. To fully grasp the magnitude of what unfolded, one must understand both the exhilarating height from which the journey began and the complex circumstances that led toward a devastating turning point, setting the stage for an extraordinary struggle of perseverance, legal reckoning, and unconditional love that would continue to unfold over more than a decade away from the public eye. The date was October 17, 2015, and the venue was the Eagle Bank Arena in Fairfax, Virginia, where an electric atmosphere filled the arena as fight fans gathered for a nationally televised premier boxing champions card. Among the featured contenders was Prichard Colón, a charismatic, exceptionally talented 23-year-old rising star from Orocovis, Puerto Rico, who entered the ring with an unblemished professional record of 16 victories, 13 of them by knockout, and 0 defeats. Known affectionately as Digit, Colón was widely celebrated not only for his handsome smile, sharp technical footwork, and fluid combinations, but also for his deep sense of national pride, frequently walking to the ring adorned in the vibrant colors of the Puerto Rican flag, with his father and trainer Richard standing firmly by his side. That evening, he was slated to face Terrell Williams, a tough, undefeated welterweight contender from Los Angeles, California, in a bout that was widely expected to serve as a definitive stepping stone toward a major world championship opportunity for the young Puerto Rican phenom. The stakes were immense, the broadcast cameras were rolling live across the nation, and both men came out eager to impose their will, creating an intense, fiercely contested bout from the very opening seconds of the first round. As the rounds developed, however, the contest quickly evolved from a showcase of pure boxing artistry into an increasingly grueling, controversial, and physically punishing encounter, marked by severe tactical friction and mounting rule infractions. Beginning in the early stages of the fight, Williams began landing repeated blows to the back of Colón's head and neck area, dangerous strikes known within the sport as rabbit punches, which are strictly prohibited under the unified rules of professional boxing due to the severe vulnerability of the brainstem and cervical spine. Colón immediately felt the abnormal impact of these illegal strikes and repeatedly brought them to the attention of referee Joe Cooper, gesturing toward the back of his head and demanding that the official enforce the rules to protect him from further trauma to the base of his skull. Despite these direct complaints, the illegal blows continued to land during clinches and close-quarters exchanges throughout the middle rounds, gradually altering the tempo and physical dynamic of the fight while ratcheting up the tension inside the ring to an unbearable degree. By the 5th and 6th rounds, the cumulative impact of these severe blows behind the head began taking an alarming physical toll on the young fighter, whose timing, defensive fluidity, and posture began to subtly deteriorate under the relentless pressure. In the 7th round, after absorbing yet another heavy strike to the back of his head, Colón went down to the canvas in visible agony, clutching the base of his skull while lying on the ring floor, prompting the referee to deduct a point from Williams for the illegal foul. During this break in the action, the ringside physician, Dr. Richard Ashby, entered the ring to evaluate Colón's medical condition and determine whether he was physically capable of continuing the bout safely. Colón explicitly told Dr. Ashby that the back of his head was hurting him severely and that he felt dizzy, a direct, unmistakable warning sign of acute neurological distress occurring in real time under the bright arena lights. Rather than halting the contest to safeguard the fighter's life or conducting a thorough, comprehensive neurological assessment, the doctor cleared Colón to continue, allowing him back into the heat of battle after a brief stoppage. The environment inside the arena grew increasingly chaotic, emotionally charged, and disorienting as the fighters re-engaged with unrestrained aggression, leading to further physical escalation. In the 8th round, visibly frustrated by the continued fouling and grappling, Colón responded with a low blow that resulted in a 2-point deduction against him, further compounding the chaos surrounding the official scoring and the conduct of the match. In the 9th round, the situation reached a devastating crisis point when Williams landed a severe flush combination that sent Colón crashing hard onto the canvas for the first time in his professional career, his head bouncing violently off the padded surface. Although Colón demonstrated immense warrior spirit and climbed back to his feet to survive the remainder of the round, his movements were conspicuously sluggish, his eyes lacked their usual sharp focus, and his coordination was severely compromised as he staggered slowly toward his corner at the sound of the bell. In the corner between the 9th and 10th rounds, utter confusion erupted amidst the noise of the arena and the ticking clock of the 60-second rest period. Believing in the heat of the moment that the bout had reached its 10-round conclusion, Colón's corner personnel, including his devoted father, began cutting the tape from his gloves and removing his protective equipment before the final round could officially begin. By the time the mistake was realized, the referee disqualified Colón for not being prepared to start the 10th round, awarding the victory to Williams and officially bringing the chaotic, brutal contest to an abrupt and controversial end. While the crowd and television commentators focused on the unusual disqualification and the bizarre end to the broadcast, a far more terrifying, life-threatening emergency was silently unfolding just steps away from the ring aprons. Upon returning to his dressing room, Colón sat down on a training table, completely exhausted, and immediately began complaining of overwhelming dizziness, severe nausea, and a blinding headache that radiated throughout his entire skull. Within moments, the young athlete began vomiting uncontrollably, and his legs suddenly gave out beneath him, causing him to collapse directly onto the locker room floor as his family and medical attendants watched in utter horror. Emergency medical services were summoned in a state of frantic urgency, and paramedics rushed into the locker room to stabilize Colón before transporting him by ambulance to Inova Fairfax Hospital in Northern Virginia. Brain scans conducted immediately upon his arrival at the Emergency Trauma Center revealed a catastrophic medical reality. Colón had suffered a massive subdural hematoma, an acute and life-threatening accumulation of blood between the surface of the brain and the outer dura mater, caused by the rupture of bridging veins under the severe rotational trauma and repetitive blunt force impacts to the back of his head. Neurosurgeons at the hospital rushed the 23-year-old fighter into the operating room for emergency brain surgery, performing an urgent craniotomy to relieve the immense, deadly intracranial pressure that was crushing his vital brain structures against the walls of his skull. The surgical team worked tirelessly for hours to evacuate the large hematoma and control the active bleeding, successfully saving his life in the immediate moments, but warning his devastated parents that the extent of the damage to his brain tissue was catastrophic and potentially irreversible. Following the delicate and perilous surgical procedure, Colón was placed in a medically induced coma within the intensive care unit, connected to mechanical ventilators, intracranial pressure monitors, and an extensive array of life support systems. For 221 consecutive days, he lay motionless in that profound, silent coma, suspended between life and death, while his family maintained an unwavering bedside vigil, praying over his still body, whispering words of love and encouragement into his ears, and holding his hand through weeks of agonizing medical uncertainty. When Prichard Colón finally emerged from his prolonged coma, the harsh, heartbreaking reality of his neurological condition became fully apparent to his loved ones and the global medical community. He was no longer the vibrant, agile, lightning-fast athlete who had walked confidently into the Eagle Bank Arena just months earlier. The severe brain trauma had left him in a persistent vegetative state, entirely unable to walk, unable to speak, unable to swallow food independently, and utterly incapable of performing even the most basic functions of daily human existence. The dynamic young man who had once commanded the center of the ring with supreme athletic mastery was now entirely dependent upon round-the-clock specialized medical care to survive, requiring constant suctioning, tube feedings directly into his stomach, physical repositioning to prevent pressure sores, and continuous monitoring to manage severe neurological spasms and autonomic dysregulation. The devastating transition from world-class professional athlete to a patient requiring lifelong total care sent shockwaves through the entire international combat sports community, exposing glaring flaws in ringside medical oversight, regulatory enforcement, and the cultural normalization of dangerous fouls. As months turned into years, the full scope of what happened on that fateful October evening became the focal point of deep ethical introspection and immense legal scrutiny, as the family confronted the profound institutional failures that permitted a young man in evident neurological crisis to continue absorbing life-shattering blows under the watchful eyes of certified officials and appointed medical professionals. The vibrant career that had held so much promise had vanished in an instant, replaced by an extraordinary daily battle for dignity, recovery, and truth that would test the boundaries of human resilience and redefine the entire meaning of devotion for those who refuse to let his voice be forgotten. For more than 11 long years following that catastrophic evening in Virginia, the story of Prichard Colón evolved into one of the most powerful, heartbreaking, and inspiring testimonies of unconditional parental love and human resilience ever witnessed in the sporting world. The quiet residence in Winter Haven, Florida, where his parents Richard and Nieves established their daily existence, was completely transformed from a normal family household into a fully operational, specialized medical facility equipped with mechanized hospital beds, advanced physical therapy equipment, oxygen concentrators, specialized wheelchair hoists, and assistive technological communication devices. Refusing entirely to surrender their beloved son to the cold, impersonal environment of a permanent institutional nursing facility, Richard and Nieves made the conscious, life-altering decision to dedicate every waking minute of their remaining years to becoming his full-time, round-the-clock primary caregivers, managing complex pharmacological regimens, delicate tracheostomy care, rigorous daily physical rehabilitation routines, and constant nutritional administration with professional-grade precision and boundless tender care. Every single morning began before dawn with a demanding series of therapeutic protocols designed to prevent muscle atrophy, stimulate dormant neurological pathways, and preserve joint mobility throughout Prichard's paralyzed limbs, requiring immense physical labor and emotional fortitude from his aging parents. Nieves, possessing an extraordinary spirit of maternal devotion, took on the mantle of his principal voice and public advocate, meticulously documenting their grueling daily journey and sharing intimate video updates with millions of supporters across the globe who remained deeply invested in his well-being. These moving public dispatches captured the agonizingly slow, microscopic milestones of neurorehabilitation, a subtle flicker of recognition in his warm, dark eyes, an intentional squeeze of his mother's hand upon command, the successful tracking of an object moving across his field of vision, and the momentous day when specialized communicative computer technology, equipped with advanced eye-tracking sensors, allowed Prichard to select basic words, phrases, and emotional expressions displayed upon a digital monitor to communicate his basic needs and innermost feelings to his tireless family. The viral videos shared by Nieves, including touching footage of Prichard responding to verbal cues, smiling during physical therapy sessions, and attempting to stand with the aid of complex robotic tilt tables and harness systems, served as a profound beacon of hope that touched hearts far beyond the conventional boundaries of boxing fandom. Fans, fellow professional fighters, world champions, and community members from Puerto Rico and across the globe rallied around the Colón family, sending emotional messages of solidarity, organizing charitable fundraisers to help offset the astronomical costs of lifelong specialized medical care, and treating Prichard not as a forgotten casualty of a violent sport, but as an enduring symbol of courage, dignity, and unyielding human spirit. In recognition of his enduring impact and unbreakable will, the World Boxing Council officially named Prichard Colón an honorary world champion, presenting him with a prestigious championship belt that was placed proudly beside his bed, a symbolic gesture affirming that his heart and legacy transcended any victory that could ever be secured within the physical ropes of a prize ring. Alongside this relentless daily fight for neurological recovery, the Colón family initiated a massive, protracted legal battle in the civil justice system, filing a landmark medical malpractice lawsuit against ringside physician Dr. Richard Ashby, the event promoters, and associated organizers, alleging gross medical negligence for failing to halt the bout when Prichard explicitly communicated acute head pain and dizziness. The lawsuit, seeking over $50 million in damages to cover the staggering lifetime costs of catastrophic brain injury care, brought intense, microscopic forensic scrutiny to the fundamental duties of medical personnel stationed inside athletic venues, highlighting the catastrophic failure of standard clinical oversight when an athlete in the throes of an evolving intracranial hemorrhage was permitted to re-enter a dangerous combat environment. While the complex legal proceedings stretched across years of depositions, expert testimonies, procedural delays, and jurisdictional battles, without delivering an easy emotional resolution, the public exposure generated by the case became a powerful catalyst for sweeping regulatory and institutional reform throughout the entire combat sports industry. The tragic fate of Prichard Colón forced boxing commissions, sanctioning bodies, athletic regulators, and medical boards around the world to confront systemic safety failures and implement urgent, mandatory changes to prevent similar tragedies from ever occurring again. Foremost among these reforms was the widespread codification and strict enforcement of the Prichard Colón Rule, a vital regulatory standard specifically designed to impose immediate, severe penalties, point deductions, and immediate disqualifications for deliberate or repetitive rabbit punches to the back of the head, thereby eliminating the dangerous leniency that had previously enabled illegal blows to go unchecked during professional bouts. In addition, athletic commissions overhauled their mandatory protocols for ringside physicians, mandating extensive advanced neurological training, establishing standardized acute concussion assessment guidelines inside the ring, and removing the absolute discretion of a concussed or disoriented athlete to dictate whether they are physically fit to continue fighting when objective warning signs of brain trauma are present. To fully understand the profound significance of Prichard's journey, one must look back at the remarkable boy he was before that tragic October night. Born in Maitland, Florida, and raised in the picturesque mountain town of Orocovis, Puerto Rico, where his love for boxing was ignited at a very young age under the guidance of his father. As an amateur, he demonstrated exceptional athletic brilliance, capturing multiple national championships in Puerto Rico and securing a prestigious gold medal at the 2010 Pan American Youth Championships in the 64-kilogram division, earning widespread acclaim as one of the most promising young talents of his generation. His transition to the professional ranks was marked by breathtaking skill, charismatic showmanship, and an infectious enthusiasm for his heritage, proudly representing his island with immense passion and carrying a humble, generous personality that endeared him to everyone he encountered, both inside and outside the training gym. The tragedy that curtailed his magnificent athletic career at just 23 years of age serves as an everlasting, solemn reminder of the delicate fragility of human life and the profound ethical weight borne by every individual involved in the regulation and supervision of high-risk human competition. The true measure of a society and its sporting institutions is found in how fiercely they protect the vulnerable, how rigorously they enforce safety standards when glory and commerce exert immense pressure, and how faithfully they remember those who paid an unimaginable price in the arena. Prichard Colón's story is not defined solely by the terrible injury he suffered under the bright arena lights, but by the extraordinary love, dignity, and tireless devotion that surrounded him through every single day of his long, challenging journey, transforming a devastating tragedy into an enduring testament of hope and familial perseverance. As we look upon the enduring legacy of Prichard Colón, we are compelled to recognize the countless quiet heroes who stand in the corner of those who cannot stand for themselves, demonstrating that true strength is not measured in punching power, championship belts, or athletic triumph, but in the unwavering willingness to care for, cherish, and defend a loved one through the deepest trials of human existence. His voice, though physically silenced on that fateful night in 2015, continues to reverberate across the global athletic landscape, saving future generations of fighters from catastrophic harm, educating the world on the vital importance of brain safety, and standing as a permanent monument to a young man whose spirit, courage, and radiant light could never be extinguished by the tragic circumstances of a single contest.